Far away from any known star, an ancient satellite drifted through the darkness of space. It was old, cracked, and covered in frozen dust. For thousands of years, it had floated silently. Then, one day, a small light blinked on its surface. A signal, a desperate cry for help, burst out into the galaxy. It was an SOS, weak and broken, repeating over and over, reaching farther than anyone thought possible. The message was simple but filled with fear. "We are dying, someone, please help us." The signal traveled across systems, across empires, across dead worlds, and finally reached a planet that was never supposed to hear it. That planet was Earth. In the Galactic Council, panic spread the moment they detected where the signal had landed. Earth was known by another name among the stars, Deathworld. The place where even the strongest species refused to go. The last time the Council had records of humanity, they were listed as dangerous, unpredictable, and too advanced for their own good. The archives said, "Avoid all contact." The Council members gathered in a massive silver chamber. The room shook with nervous energy. "The signal reached them," one alien said, voice trembling. Another replied, "Then it's already too late." They all knew the stories. Humans didn't just fight wars, they ended them. They didn't just survive, they adapted. If the Deathworlders responded to that SOS, no one could control what came next. On Earth, inside the orbital defense station Artemis 1, Commander Ryan Hayes stood staring at the data feed. The SOS was old, probably thousands of years, but it was clear. A life form was begging for help from a collapsing system. "Whoever sent this," Hayes said, "they knew we'd find it." His second officer frowned. "Sir, how can that be possible? The coordinates are beyond mapped space." Dr. Amani, the ship's science officer, leaned closer to the screen. "Look at this," she whispered. "The code inside the signal, it's not alien." Hayes looked up sharply. "Explain." "It carries human genetic markers," she said quietly. "Someone out there used our DNA as part of the encryption." The room went silent. Outside the window, Earth floated like a blue jewel surrounded by defense satellites and silent dreadnoughts. "You're telling me an alien SOS includes human DNA?" Hayes asked. "Yes, sir. Which means either they found our remains, or one of us was there before." The decision went straight to the Earth Defense Council. World leaders argued through the night. Some said to ignore it, too risky, too far, too unknown. Others said humanity had changed. They weren't the same reckless Deathworlders anymore. They were explorers now, builders, not destroyers. Commander Hayes stood before the council. "If someone used human DNA to call for help," he said, "then it's our responsibility to answer. Whoever they are, they reached out to us. That means something." The chamber fell silent. Finally, the council head nodded. "Approved. Fleet Firestorm will respond." Within days, massive human ships gathered above Earth's orbit. Their dark metal hulls glowed with blue thruster light. Crews ran final checks. Engines hummed like thunder. The first fleet launch in over a century was about to begin. The mission was clear: travel to the coordinates of the SOS, find the survivors, and uncover the truth. As the countdown started, Dr. Amani looked uneasy. "Commander," she said softly, "what if this isn't a call for help? What if it's a trap?" Hayes looked at the stars. "Then we find out who set it." As the fleet began its jump, light warped around them. But somewhere deep in the void, unseen by human eyes, other watchers stirred. In a distant system, alien monitors detected the movement. "They're coming," one said, voice cold and filled with dread. "The Deathworlders have awakened." Meanwhile, inside the flagship Horizon's edge, Hayes looked out the viewport. Stars stretched into lines as the fleet entered warp. "A signal that should never have reached us," he muttered. "And yet, here we are." Dr. Imani turned toward him. "Do you really believe it's human?" Hayes hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I don't know. But I believe someone wanted us to find it." Back on Earth, in the old archives buried deep beneath the surface, an ancient terminal blinked to life for the first time in centuries. A hidden file opened automatically. It contained a message written long ago: "If the universe ever calls us again, answer with fire." The Galactic Council's chamber floated in orbit above the shining gas giant of Varan 5. The air inside buzzed with unease as delegates from dozens of species shouted over one another. Holograms flickered, displaying the same terrible fact: the Deathworlders had responded. "They're mobilizing a fleet," one shouted, his scaled hands trembling. "It's confirmed, Earth's ships are on the move." Across the chamber, the council head, a tall, thin being named Kareth, slammed his clawed hand on the table. "Silence!" The room grew quiet. His voice echoed through the chamber. "You all know what happens when humans go to war. Entire star clusters still bear their scars. We buried that history. We promised never to wake them again." A smaller alien with silver eyes leaned forward. "And yet, they answered a call for help. Should we punish them for compassion?" Kareth turned sharply. "Compassion? The Deathworlders know only retribution. That signal will drag the galaxy back into fire." He turned toward the viewing screen. "Send observers. If they cross the outer rim, we prepare containment fleets." Meanwhile, far from the Council's panic, humanity's fleet moved through the cold void. Commander Ryan Hayes stood on the bridge of the flagship Horizon's Edge, eyes locked on the star map. 7 massive dreadnoughts followed in formation, their hulls shining faintly in the dim starlight. "Report," Hayes ordered. His communications officer replied, "Jump complete. All ships accounted for. We're 2 jumps from the SOS coordinates." Dr. Imani stepped forward, holding a data pad. "We've translated more of the signal. It's definitely human-coded. There's a repeating phrase hidden in the static." "What does it say?" Hayes asked. Her voice softened. "It says, 'We remember the fire.'" Hayes frowned. "Fire? As in destruction?" "Maybe. Or maybe survival," she replied. Outside, in the blackness, the fleet's sensors picked up movement, tiny glimmers, like stars shifting. Hayes narrowed his eyes. "Is that debris?" The officer shook his head. "No, sir. They're probes. Someone's watching us." On the screen, dozens of faint red lights appeared and vanished. Hayes clenched his jaw. "Get me a shield sweep. I want every sensor on full range." The fleet moved cautiously, weapons online but not drawn. They didn't want to start a war, yet. Back in the council chamber, Kareth watched the feed. "They're ignoring our warnings," he hissed. "Their fleet's weapons are active." "You expected them to travel unarmed?" asked another delegate mockingly. "They're entering the dead zones, Kareth. Places we abandoned centuries ago. If they find what's there." "They must not," Kareth interrupted. "Seal the sector. Send interceptors. The humans cannot be allowed to reach that system." But the Council's communication drones never made it. Midway through transmission, something jammed them. An old signal pulsed through the network, older than the Council itself. "Unknown origin. Unknown source." It whispered through static, "They are coming home." Back aboard the Horizon's Edge, Dr. Imani felt a chill. "Commander, I'm detecting interference on all channels. It's like something is echoing our own signal back at us." "Could it be the source of the SOS?" Hayes asked. "Possibly, but the reflection's coming from multiple points," she said. "Almost like it's guiding us." Hayes didn't like that. Nothing about this mission made sense. The message, the DNA, the hidden coordinates, it all felt too deliberate. "Keep scanning," he said quietly. "If someone wants us to follow, we'll see where the trail ends." As the ships prepared for their next jump, Hayes stared out at the stars. "Do you ever think," he asked Imani, "that maybe the Council was right to fear us?" She gave a small, sad smile. "Maybe they fear what we remind them of. Humanity's story is filled with fire. But fire also gives light. Hayes nodded slowly. Let's hope we're the light this time. Moments later, the fleet initiated the jump sequence. Space twisted, stars stretched into streaks, and then, silence. They emerged near the outer rim of the coordinates. Before them lay a field of shattered worlds. Broken moons, burnt-out planets, and twisted metal fragments floated endlessly. The sight stole everyone's breath. This is where the signal came from? Imani whispered. A graveyard. The sensors came alive. Multiple energy signatures, the tech officer reported. Faint but present. Someone's still out there. Hayes straightened. Send out recon drones. Keep shields up. We're not alone. In the distance, one of the shattered planets rotated slowly. For a brief moment, something metallic glinted across its surface, a massive structure half buried in ice. The signal spiked again, stronger now. It was as if the planet itself was calling to them. Hayes stared at the data. That's it. That's our source. As the fleet prepared to descend, alarms blared suddenly. Unidentified ships incoming, the officer shouted. Hayes turned sharply. How many? Too many, came the grim reply. Red lights filled the sensor grid. The Council's containment fleets had arrived. Dr. Imani's voice trembled. They don't want us to find whatever's down there. Hayes's tone hardened. They can try to stop us. But that signal asked for humanity. And humanity always answers. The horizon's edge angled its bow toward the dying planet, engines roaring like thunder. The fleet followed, breaking formation as enemy ships emerged from the dark. The battle hadn't started yet, but everyone knew it was coming. Somewhere below, buried in ice and ruin, the truth waited. And above, between stars and silence, humanity's fire began to rise again. The human fleet emerged from the thick cloud of debris, engines burning through the ghostly remains of what was once a thriving system. Commander Ryan Hayes stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, eyes fixed on the cracked surface of the planet below. The scans showed scattered energy signatures and the faint pulse of an atmosphere struggling to exist. Prepare landing teams, Hayes ordered. We're going down. Around him, the crew moved quickly, their faces tense but focused. Everyone could feel the weight of it, the sense that they were about to uncover something ancient, something dangerous. Dr. Imani studied her readings. The planet was once home to billions, she said softly. But there's no sign of life anymore. Just ruins and radiation. It's like the entire surface was burned. Hayes gave a grim nod. Let's find out who did the burning. A few hours later, landing pods streaked through the thin atmosphere and settled among the wreckage of what had once been a massive city. The air was cold, filled with dust and silence. Metal towers jutted out of the ground like bones. The team stepped out in armored suits, their lights cutting through the shadows. Looks like a war zone, one soldier muttered. No, Dr. Imani whispered, kneeling by a broken wall. This wasn't war. This was extermination. She brushed off the dust and froze. Etched into the wall were markings, not alien, but English letters. They were faint but clear. Unity Station, Human Research Base 07. Hayes stared at it in disbelief. That's impossible. No human colony ever existed here. Imani looked at him. Then what is this doing here? The team spread out, searching through the ruins. They found human-style architecture, old corridors, and faded banners carrying Earth's symbol, half buried under alien designs. It was as if two civilizations had lived together and then vanished in one single moment. Commander, one of the soldiers called from deeper inside the structure. You need to see this. Hayes followed him into a wide, underground hall. At the center stood a massive, sealed door made of dark alloy. It pulsed faintly with blue light. Energy still active, Imani said, scanning it. Thousands of years old and still running. Whatever's behind this, it wasn't meant to be found. Hayes placed his hand on the surface. The metal was warm, almost alive. "Can you open it?" "Maybe," she replied. "But I need time." As they worked, the air around them seemed to hum, like the building itself was reacting to their presence. Then, without warning, a voice echoed through the chamber, faint, distorted, but unmistakably human. "Authentication required. Command protocol. Horizon." Everyone froze. "Did that just say Horizon?" Hayes whispered. "That's the name of our ship." Imani looked at her scanner. No signal source. The voice is coming from everywhere. The door slowly creaked open, revealing a massive chamber beyond. In the dim light, something immense rested in the darkness, a colossal ship, buried deep beneath the city. Its hull was ancient and black, with faded human markings that read, Horizon, 01. Hayes felt his breath catch. "That's a human warship," he said quietly. "Older than anything we've ever built." Dr. Imani nodded, her voice shaking. "This is pre-Council era tech. It must have been hidden here before humanity vanished from the stars." They stepped closer. The ship's surface was cracked, but its engines still glowed faintly. A small drone floated near its side, scanning the hull, then projecting a hologram. The image flickered, showing a message left by someone long ago. "To whoever finds this," the hologram said in a tired human voice, "we tried to stop it. The enemy was not alien. It was our own creation." Static filled the air. "If you are human, activate Horizon Protocol. The universe must never repeat our mistake." The hologram ended, leaving only silence. Hayes and Imani stared at each other. "Our own creation," she repeated. What could they have built that destroyed an entire system? Before Hayes could answer, alarms blared through the comms. "Commander, we've got movement in orbit. Unknown ships approaching fast." "Council fleets?" Hayes asked. "Negative," came the reply. "Different energy signatures, something else entirely." Hayes turned toward the buried ship. "Get this thing powered up," he said firmly. "If there's something coming, we'll need it." Imani nodded and started tapping commands into her console. As the systems came online, lights flickered across the ship's hull. The ground trembled. The warship's engines let out a deep, ancient hum. Outside, dark shadows began descending through the clouds, metallic, insect-like machines moving in perfect formation. "What are those?" a soldier shouted. "Not Council," Hayes said. "Something worse." Above them, the swarm grew larger, blotting out the sun. The air filled with the sound of crackling static and distorted whispers. The machines weren't just approaching, they were searching. Dr. Imani shouted, "Power surge detected. The horizon is waking up." The ancient warship's main cannon flared to life, sending ripples of energy across the ruins. Hayes watched as the machines turned toward the glow. "You wanted to know what burned this world," he said grimly. "We're about to find out." And as the first of the enemy machines descended, the long-buried horizon let out a low mechanical roar, its ancient systems reawakening for the first time in centuries, ready to unleash the fire humanity had left behind. The ground shook as the buried warship, Horizon 01, came alive. Dust and debris fell from the ceiling while deep mechanical sounds echoed through the ancient chamber. Commander Hayes and his team stood in awe as lights flickered along the ship's massive hull, one by one, like a heartbeat returning after centuries of silence. "It's responding to our presence," Dr. Imani whispered, staring at her scanner. "This ship recognizes human DNA." Hayes took a step closer. The ship's voice filled the chamber, deep and calm, almost human. "Command identity confirmed. Initiating awakening sequence. Protocol, extinction defense." Everyone froze. The words were heavy, cold, and final. Extinction defense. Hayes muttered. What the hell were our ancestors planning? Outside, the storm of enemy machines grew thicker. Metallic wings glimmered in the gray sky as the swarm began circling the ruins. The human fleet in orbit reported heavy contact. "Commander," the comms officer's voice crackled. Unknown hostiles are engaging. They're tearing through our outer perimeter. Hayes glanced upward through the cracked ceiling. Hold your position. The horizon might be our only chance. Dr. Imani rushed to the ship's control console. Ancient symbols danced across the surface, mixed with English text. It's running an old interface, but I can read most of it, she said. The ship was designed to defend against a machine enemy, something called the Ecliptic Swarm. Hayes looked grim. Then we're staring at it right now. The swarm began to dive, mechanical shrieks cutting through the air. The sky lit up with streaks of plasma fire as the human fleet engaged them from above. Explosions bloomed across the dark horizon, flashes of blue and red in the distance. Inside the ruins, the horizon's engines flared, breaking apart the ground around it. Huge chunks of metal fell as the ship began to rise. Hayes shouted, "Everyone back! It's taking off!" The massive warship tore itself free from centuries of rock and ash, sending shockwaves through the valley. Dust clouds rolled outward as the ancient vessel lifted into the sky. Its hull gleamed black under the stormlight, and on its side, the words Horizon 01 burned bright once again. "Commander Hayes." The ship's voice boomed, clear and steady now. "Command transfer pending. Awaiting orders." Hayes stared at the glowing console inside the command deck. "You can hear me?" "Affirmative," replied the AI. "Systems at 40%. Weapons offline. Enemy presence detected. Recommend immediate activation of defense network." Hayes didn't hesitate. "Do it." The ship's core pulsed with white light. Dozens of defense drones shot out from its hangars, swarming upward like sparks. The AI spoke again. "Activating solar lance arrays. Warning. Power instability detected. Recommend temporary link with nearby vessels for support." Dr. Imani quickly synced the Horizon systems to the human fleet. "We're connected," she said. "But this ship's energy output is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's pulling power from the planet's core." The Horizon roared to life, its cannons igniting with beams of golden light. The first shots ripped through the enemy swarm, vaporizing entire clusters. The ground and sky flashed white. The alien machines screamed through the air, returning fire, but their plasma bolts disintegrated against the ship's shields. On the horizon's edge, human captains watched in shock as the ancient warship destroyed hundreds of hostiles with a single volley. "By the stars," one whispered. "That's not a ship, it's a planet killer." Hayes looked out from the command deck, his reflection glowing in the console's light. "No," he said quietly. "It's a protector. Or at least it used to be." Then, without warning, a massive energy surge appeared at the edge of the system. The scanners screamed with static. "Multiple signatures inbound," shouted Dr. Imani. "Council fleets, they've arrived." Hayes's heart sank. "They'll think we caused this." A transmission crackled through the speakers. "This is High Commander Kareth of the Galactic Council. Cease all activity and stand down, Deathworlders. That vessel is forbidden technology. You have no idea what you've awakened." Hayes replied, voice hard. "That's where you're wrong. We know exactly what we're facing. And if we don't stop it, none of us will survive." Karetha's tone turned cold. "Then you will be erased alongside your creation." As the Council fleets moved into formation, the Horizon sensors picked up another wave of hostiles, the ecliptic swarm multiplying faster than before. "They're attacking everyone," Imani shouted. "The Council ships too." The comms filled with chaotic chatter from alien captains screaming for help. Karetha's voice returned, shaken. "What is this? They're not responding to our weapons." Hayes turned to the console. "AI, target the swarm and defend all ships in range." "Acknowledged," said the AI. "Deploying gravitic shields." A massive barrier expanded from the horizon, covering both human and alien ships. Enemy fire slammed against it, but couldn't break through. For the first time, the humans and the Council fought side by side. Dr. Imani watched the readings in disbelief. This ship was built to protect the galaxy, not destroy it. The SOS wasn't just a cry for help, it was a warning. Hayes nodded grimly. And now that warning has come true. Outside, the horizon fired again, sending waves of energy across space. Enemy ships shattered in brilliant explosions, but more kept coming. The AI's voice deepened. Enemy numbers increasing exponentially. Estimated total, beyond measurable scale. Hayes clenched his fists. Then we keep fighting until the fire goes out. The horizon's core flared brighter, its engines roaring like thunder. Across the dying system, human and alien ships fought together under its shield. And in that moment, the galaxy saw once again what it meant when the Deathworlders responded, with fire. The battle above the ruined planet burned like a second sun. The Horizon 01 moved through the chaos with terrifying grace, its black hull glowing with molten heat as its weapons tore through the enemy swarm. Every cannon blast carved a path of destruction across the stars. The human fleet fought beside it, smaller but fearless, while the alien council ships, once enemies, now fired in desperate coordination. Commander Hayes stood at the command console, his voice steady despite the storm outside. Target the central swarm cluster. We break them there, we buy time for everyone else. The ship's AI responded instantly. Acknowledged. Focusing solar lances. Beams of golden light ripped through the void, obliterating entire waves of enemy drones. Dr. Imani gripped the console, her voice urgent. The swarm is adapting. They're reconfiguring their armor faster than we can destroy them. Hayes's jaw tightened. Then we hit harder. He turned toward the comms officer. Signal the fleet. Full assault formation. No retreat. Across the stars, hundreds of human and alien ships aligned with precision, unleashing everything they had. Plasma bolts, missiles, railguns, and particle beams filled the darkness with light. The void became a sea of fire. But the swarm didn't stop. Its ships regenerated, merging into larger, more twisted forms. They're feeding on the wreckage, Imani said, eyes wide. They're evolving mid-battle. Hayes slammed his fist against the railing. There has to be a way to stop them. The AI's voice broke through the noise. Commander, analysis complete. The enemy swarm's central control signal originates from a single point, deep inside the system's collapsed star. Suggest engaging primary weapon. Primary weapon? Hayes repeated. You mean that giant cannon in the hull we haven't tested yet? Affirmative, said the AI calmly. Warning, activation will drain all secondary systems, including shields. Hayes looked out at the holographic display. If they fired, they'd be vulnerable for minutes. If they didn't, the swarm would consume everything. He turned to Imani. Can the fleet cover us long enough? She hesitated, then nodded. If we time it perfectly. But they'll take heavy losses. Hayes's voice hardened. Do it. He opened the fleet channel. All ships, this is Commander Hayes. We're firing the Horizon's main weapon. Hold the line. Protect this ship at all costs. The comms filled with responses, human and alien voices alike. Acknowledged, Commander. We'll cover you, Deathworlder. For the galaxy. Hayes took a breath and gave the order. AI, charge the weapon. Deep within the ship, massive energy conduits glowed blue-white. The entire vessel trembled as it pulled power from the planet's molten core. Lightning danced across the hull. Weapon charge at 50%, the AI reported. Outside, enemy ships closed in, firing relentlessly. The Horizon's shields began to collapse. On the fleet's edge, a human cruiser exploded, followed by 2 Council frigates. 70%, said the AI. Shields critical. Dr. Imani's voice broke. We can't hold much longer. Hayes gritted his teeth. Just a little more. Another blast shook the deck. Consoles sparked. Crew members were thrown from their stations. 90%, the AI said calmly. Firing sequence ready. Hayes slammed his hand down. Fire. The universe flashed white. A beam of pure energy burst from the horizon's core, cutting straight through the swarm's central mass. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Then, in complete silence, the entire swarm convulsed, ships folding inward as if pulled by an unseen force. One by one, they exploded into fragments of burning metal. The shockwave rippled through space, sending debris flying in all directions. When the light faded, the stars returned. The swarm was gone. The bridge filled with stunned silence. Even the AI paused before speaking. Enemy core destroyed. Remaining drones inactive. Dr. Imani exhaled shakily. We did it. But the sensors started to beep again. Commander, said the communications officer, we're detecting something else. Hayes turned to the display. Deep within the collapsing star, a new energy signature was forming. The readings spiked higher and higher. It's not over, Imani whispered. The swarm was just one part of it. There's something beneath the star's surface. The AI's tone grew darker. Unknown entity detected. Classification, machine origin. Estimated scale, planetary. A shape began to rise from the dying star, massive and mechanical, glowing with crimson light. It was larger than any ship, larger than any station. The creature was part machine, part planet, covered in metal spines that reached miles long. It's alive, Imani said in horror. Hayes stared at the display. The creator, he muttered. The thing that built the swarm. The AI confirmed. Designation, core mind. Primary intelligence of the ecliptic network. Warning, it is waking. Hayes took a step forward, his voice steady but filled with fire. Then we finish what our ancestors started. He turned to Imani. Get me full system control. We're not leaving until that thing is gone. Imani met his gaze. Commander, if we engage again, we might not survive. Hayes gave a faint smile. Humanity's survived worse. Outside, the core mind opened like a burning flower, releasing waves of energy that shook space itself. The horizon's engines roared to life, aiming straight at the heart of the storm. All ships, Hayes said over comms, form up. This isn't just about us anymore. This is about everyone. As the fleet turned toward the impossible enemy, the AI's voice echoed through the bridge. Commander Hayes, we are outnumbered. Good, Hayes said quietly. Let's show them what Deathworlders do when the universe asks for help. And with that, the horizon charged forward into the fire once more, its cannons blazing against the dark god rising from the stars. The Horizon 01 dove straight into the burning light, its hull screaming under the pressure of the core mind's awakening. The creature was beyond anything the crew had ever seen, an artificial planet, pulsing with the energy of a dying star. Its surface rippled with shifting metal, each movement birthing smaller ships that poured into the void like living shadows. Commander Hayes gripped the rail as the bridge shook violently. Status, he barked. Shields at 40% and dropping fast, shouted the tactical officer. We're surrounded. Hayes turned to the main display where the core mind loomed like a red sun. Target its power nodes. If it bleeds energy, we can hurt it. Dr. Imani's hands flew across the console, scanning the impossible machine. There, she pointed. Those glowing veins, it's channeling energy from the star beneath it. If we cut them, it might slow down. AI, lock coordinates, Hayes ordered. And prepare the rail batteries. The ship's AI responded in its calm, neutral tone. Locked and ready. Firing sequence active. Massive guns along the horizon sides thundered, sending tungsten rounds through the void at near light speed. Each impact erupted in explosions that tore across the core mine's surface, but the damage healed within seconds as molten metal flowed to replace what was lost. It's repairing itself, Imani said in disbelief. Faster than we can shoot it. Then we need to get inside, Hayes replied coldly. Find the core and destroy it from within. The bridge went silent. The idea was madness. No one had ever attempted to breach a planetary machine. But there was no time for doubt. The swarm ships were reforming, spiraling around the massive entity like insects protecting a hive. The AI spoke again. Incoming energy spike detected. The core mind is charging a directed beam weapon. Hayes narrowed his eyes. Brace for impact. A beam of crimson fire erupted from the creature's surface, striking the fleet with unholy precision. Several ships vanished instantly, disintegrated to atoms. The horizon itself was thrown sideways, alarms blaring. Sparks flew from the ceiling as crew members scrambled to regain control. "Hull breach on Deck 3, yelled the damage officer. "Emergency bulkheads holding." Hayes steadied himself and shouted, "Helm! Bring us around." Full thrust toward the core. The helmsman hesitated. "Commander, that's suicide." "That's an order." Hayes snapped. The ship's engines roared to life, blue flames pushing it forward through the swarm. Fighters and escort ships fell in beside it, forming a desperate spearhead. Together, they cut through the enemy lines, blasting everything in their path. "We're opening a hole," cried Imani. Just a little more, the horizon broke through the outer layer of the swarm, heading directly toward a gaping wound on the core mine's surface where molten metal dripped into space. "There." Hayes pointed. "Take us in." The hull began to glow red as they entered the atmosphere of the machine world. The temperature rose, and systems started to fail. Inside, tunnels of metal stretched endlessly, glowing with pulsing red veins. "We're inside the core mind," said Imani, staring at the readings. "Radiation's off the charts." "We don't need to stay long," Hayes said. "Find me the central control node." The AI's voice broke in. "Locating, done. Central chamber, 2 kilometers ahead. However, Commander, the energy output suggests this core may be sentient." Hayes frowned. Meaning, the AI continued, "it might already know we're here." The lights dimmed as a deep rumbling filled the tunnel. Suddenly, the walls came alive, metal shifting into monstrous forms. Mechanical limbs burst from the sides, clawing at the ship. "Defense systems activated." Imani shouted. "They're trying to tear us apart." Hayes slammed a fist against the console. "Forward guns, fire everything." The horizon unleashed hell inside the tunnel. Plasma bolts and kinetic rounds tore through the mechanical limbs, blasting molten metal in every direction. The path cleared, but the ship was badly damaged. "We're losing power," Imani said. "We can't take much more." Hayes's voice dropped, calm and fierce. "Then we finish this now." The AI projected a holographic map. Central core ahead. Warning, energy readings unstable. As the horizon approached, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber, a cathedral of machinery. At its center floated a colossal sphere of black metal, surrounded by arcs of lightning. It pulsed like a heartbeat. And then, a voice filled the ship, not from the speakers, but inside their minds. "Deathworlders," it whispered, in a tone that sounded ancient and mechanical. "You answer the call. You bring destruction." Hayes froze. "You can speak." "I am the core mind," the voice said. "I created the swarm to rebuild the galaxy. You bring only chaos and death." Hayes glared at the massive core. "You sent that signal. You called for help." "I called for balance," the core mind replied. "But you are not balance. You are extinction." The sphere began to glow brighter, the energy reaching critical levels. "You will end, as all violent species do." Hayes turned to Imani. "Charge the fusion torpedoes. All of them." Her eyes widened. "That'll vaporize the ship. Then we'll take this thing with us," Hayes said. The AI's voice softened. "Commander, if you proceed, survival probability drops below 1%. "That's still a chance," he said with a grin. "Ready weapons." The core mind roared, its voice shaking the ship. You cannot destroy what is eternal. Hayes stared at the pulsing sphere. Watch us. The Horizon's weapons began to glow as the countdown started. The bridge filled with the blinding light of humanity's defiance. And as the core mind unleashed its fury, the Deathworlder ship dove straight into the heart of the machine, carrying humanity's wrath into the fire. The Horizon, 01 plunged straight into the core mind's blazing heart. Metal screamed, light flared, and every alarm on the bridge went red. The massive machine roared like a living god, sending waves of energy through the tunnels. The ship's hull began to melt, but Commander Hayes didn't blink. Stay on target, he shouted over the chaos. Dr. Imani struggled to keep her console steady. Core temperatures climbing. We'll vaporize in seconds. Hayes's eyes were locked on the glowing sphere ahead. Not before we end it. The AI's calm voice cut through the panic. Fusion torpedoes armed. Core proximity optimal. Awaiting confirmation. Hayes slammed his palm on the console. Fire all torpedoes. The ship trembled as the torpedoes launched, streaking toward the core in blinding trails of white fire. They hit their mark, detonating with the force of a dying star. The explosion filled the chamber, tearing apart metal and light. But when the smoke cleared, the core was still there, cracked, damaged, but alive. It's still functioning, said Imani, her voice trembling. How? The core mind's voice filled the air, now colder and filled with fury. You cannot destroy what was forged from suns. The metal walls rippled as if alive, closing in on the ship like a fist. The Horizon's hull groaned under the pressure. We're being pulled in, shouted the helmsman. It's trying to absorb us. Hayes gritted his teeth. AI, reroute all remaining power to the engines. Get us free. Warning, the AI replied. Such action will disable life support. Do it, Hayes ordered. The ship's lights flickered, and everything went dark except the red glow from the core outside. Engines screamed as the Horizon burst forward, breaking through the crushing walls of molten metal. They shot upward through collapsing tunnels, pursued by a storm of energy. Behind them, the core mind howled in rage, its entire body beginning to collapse. Commander, Imani gasped. It's destabilizing. The core's going to implode. Then we need to get out, now, Hayes shouted. The Horizon raced upward, battered and broken, as the tunnels crumbled behind it. Pieces of the machine world shattered, falling into the burning star below. The view ahead grew brighter, then blinding, the open space beyond the creature's surface. We're clear, cried the helmsman. But the relief was short-lived. The AI spoke again, its tone grim. Core mind gravitational collapse imminent. Shockwave estimated to reach our position in 40 seconds. 40 seconds, Hayes muttered. We'll never outrun it. Imani looked at him. Then what do we do? Hayes took a deep breath. AI, can we contain it? The AI processed rapidly. If we deploy the gravitational dampers at maximum field strength, we can reduce the impact, but it will destroy the ship. Hayes nodded slowly. Then that's what we'll do. Commander, Imani said softly. That means, I know, Hayes interrupted. But if we don't, that thing takes the whole system with it. He turned to the crew. Everyone to escape pods. That's an order. Sir, what about you? The helmsman asked. I'll stay, Hayes said. Someone has to trigger the dampers manually. The bridge fell silent. For a moment, only the hum of the dying engines filled the air. Imani stood frozen, tears welling in her eyes. You can't do this alone. Hayes gave her a faint smile. I've been doing it alone my whole life. She shook her head. Then I'm staying too. Hayes was about to argue, but her look stopped him. Fine, he said quietly. But we do this together. The remaining crew evacuated, their pods launching like streaks of light into the dark. The Horizon turned to face the burning machine world, now collapsing in on itself. The core mind's voice returned, weak but filled with venom. You destroy yourselves to destroy me. Typical. Hayes stared at the display. You're right. That's what makes us human. He placed his hand on the console. AI, begin the dampening sequence. Confirmed, the AI replied. Thank you, Commander. It has been an honor. The ship's structure began to glow as the gravitational field expanded, wrapping around the core. The core mind screamed, a sound of digital rage echoing across the void. The star behind it imploded, and the core was crushed into nothingness. The shockwave hit like the fist of a god. The horizon's hull shattered, but the dampers held long enough to contain the blast. From the outside, it looked like the ship disappeared into a sphere of light, then silence. Hours later, far beyond the dying system, the escape pods drifted through space. Inside one of them, the surviving crew watched the screens in silence. The planet was gone. The core mind was gone. And with it, the Horizon 01. He did it, whispered one of the officers. He actually did it. Dr. Imani's pod drifted alone, her face lit by the faint glow of the distant stars. She stared into the dark where the ship had vanished. You saved them, Hayes, she whispered. You saved us all. Suddenly, her console flickered. Static danced across the display, then a familiar voice spoke through the noise. Imani, this is Commander Hayes. If you're hearing this, her heart froze. Hayes. The voice was faint, distorted. The AI managed to transfer my consciousness before the explosion. I'm not exactly alive, but I'm here. Somewhere in the system's network. She covered her mouth, tears falling. You're alive. Somehow, you're alive. Not alive, Hayes said softly. Just, still fighting. The signal grew weaker. Tell them, humanity doesn't run from the dark. We bring the fire. And with that, the transmission ended. The stars around her shimmered faintly, as if saluting the fallen ship that had burned brighter than any sun. Humanity had answered the universe's call, and left its mark written in fire across the stars.